Hey, what's up gamers? You have Tiger Chainsaw here. And in 2018, I got the Nintendo Switch. I didn't really know what to expect with it because I didn't get the Wii U. The Wii U never caught my eye. I never sought it out. And so it had been a couple of generations since I picked up a Nintendo console. And was I blown away with the Switch. Now the Switch has maybe the largest physical library that I have seen for a very, very long time. And that is why today's video I am picking out 10 hidden gems on the Nintendo Switch. And these games I absolutely love. So if you haven't yet, make sure you hit that sub button to watch plenty of other hidden gem videos that I've done for various consoles. Now the Nintendo Switch I feel like is made for retro gaming, and my selections are going to reflect that. So let's jump in to these Nintendo Switch hidden gems. Gamers, I am telling you, if you just pick one game from this list, I beg you, pick this game, because to me, it is a perfect 10 out of 10. This game is incredible. That is going to be Valfaris. Valfaris to me is nearly a perfect game. It took me about 10 hours to complete, which is something that I value because I value my time. I can't play 50 to 80 hour games all the time, but Valfaris was just a quick, short burst of amazing fun. It has one of the best heavy metal soundtracks I have ever heard in video games, and that really goes along with the theme of the game. But to top it off, the combat is just so quick and deadly. You're going to be killing enemies quickly, but they will kill you just as fast. Most of the game was kind of like run and gun action, and some enemies require a bit more thought than just pointing the gun at them, but there's also wildlife that will jump around and charge at you. The soldiers that you're shooting at, they might have shields, and there's drones coming from enemy bases nearby. It's all done really well, and it kept me on my toes my entire playthrough. Now, I had numerous weapons at my disposal. I was able to collect various pistols, and they each had their own unique attacks, kind of like honing bullets, and there was flame ones, and there was weapons that had longer ranges, but I also had a melee weapon like a sword or axe, and even a limb. There are times when you can rip off limbs of enemies and use it to bash the other foes. It was crazy fun. I thought Valfaris was a challenging game, but to help balance that out, the checkpoints were just placed perfectly throughout the game. You're not going to go 2 or 3 minutes without running into one, and while that seems short, you really do need them because Valfaris can crank up that difficulty. Now graphically, Valfaris kind of looks like it comes from the 16-bit era, but I just loved the retro feel of this run and gun game. It set the bar so high for what I thought indie games could be. And another perk was the boss fights. They were unique, they were challenging, they were addicting, and they were fun. There's a strategy suited for each boss, and I died a bunch on all the bosses, but I always was so satisfied to come away with a bloody victory. Valfaris is one of the best fast-paced action platformers I have ever played. If you pick one game from my list, please pick up Valfaris. For this next selection, I actually did a full review on this game, so if you like what you see, make sure you check that out on my channel after this video. But this next game absolutely blew my mind with the final boss. This game is crazy, and crazy in a good way. That's going to be Trigger Witch. Trigger Witch has the absolute most off-the-rails plot. The ending of this game had my jaw on the floor, and the final boss and the antagonist of this entire game I was just shocked at. And it was good. It was humorous. It was really interesting to see how they all tied it together. It's bizarre, but it works and it kept me playing. But I didn't play this game because of the plot. What stood out to me about Trigger Witch was the color palette. It's got pastel colors, but the gameplay is far from family friendly. The game features, fast-paced, top-down shooting gameplay mixed with some puzzles, some exploration, and some actual crafting mechanics. But you'll be controlling a witch as she battles her way through various levels filled with enemies and obstacles, and you need to unlock these areas by completing some quests that are given to you. To kill all the enemies, you'll be firing guns like crazy, and you can carry up to 2 weapons at a time. Each have their own unique attributes and ammo type, and there's tons of weapons like pistols, shotguns, machine guns. There's even a flamethrower. But you can also use a melee attack if you get into a tight pinch, and I did use that quite a bit. So you're mowing down all these enemies, and it's really satisfying to see just all of the blood splatter. And when the enemies die, they leave little gems, and you get to collect those. And all of it was just very fast-paced, but very addicting as well. I couldn't wait to see what was around the corner. Now, the boss fights are absolutely insane. The final boss is one of the craziest boss fights I have ever seen in a video game. It was fun, it was challenging, but just to know who you are fighting, I was just like, wow, this game is awesome. If you haven't picked up Trigger Witch, if you want a hidden gem, make sure you pick this game up. The Switch library is so massive. I'm always discovering new games, and sometimes the games I discover are not always made physically in North America. For this next entry, I had to select this from a PAL region dealer. That is going to be Aggelos. This game has beautiful graphics. They're pretty simplistic, and it's also got a killer soundtrack, but it clearly takes inspiration from the Wonder Boy series with the gameplay, the tunes, and how you progress and unlock areas. You're going to need to find 4 crystals in elemental temples. Think of these as dungeons where you'll do a lot of exploring, battling enemies, solving puzzles, and then finally fighting a boss to defeat the temple. Now, the boss fights were super challenging. Usually I'm pretty good at boss fights, but with these ones, I either had to grind a ton before fighting the boss, learn their patterns by dying a ton, or just plain get lucky. Now, the final boss was insanely hard, and to be honest, it was a little bit tough on the eyes with all of the flashing on the screen. I don't have a ton of complaints with this game, but that final boss with all the flashing definitely gave me a little bit of a headache. To help break up the boss fights though, you'll be leveling up by collecting coins and buying new weapons and armor, or learning spells through the scrolls that you find throughout the game. Now, there's villages to talk to NPCs, there's little quests that you can go on, but if you are craving a Wonder Boy style adventure, I highly recommend you check out Aggelos. This game is awesome. I do have a couple of spooky games for my selections of Switch hidden gems, and this next one gets compared to the PS1 era, and I can agree a little bit with that. This next game is going to be Signalis. A lot of people compare this to a Resident Evil type game from the PS1 era, and I can agree to an extent, but I also think this game does enough to separate itself from the clone label. It's a very strange game, and it's got somewhat of a confusing story. You're searching for someone, and you're discovering kind of what happened to not only them, but the base that you are in. It feels very much like a game from the late 90s era, with the way that the enemies behave, the inventory system, the save points, and how the weapons control. That's all a good thing, but I think at times I did get a little bit bored with the game. I feel like it was maybe too slow-paced or too repetitive with certain tasks. Now, I don't want to spoil anything, but this game certainly breaks the fourth wall at certain points in the game. There's a lot going on behind the scenes of this game, so just make sure you're paying attention to every detail, both in the game and with the user experience. It did offer a cool way to switch perspective from a top-down view to a first-person view as you're exploring some sections of the game or putting together some puzzles. Now, there were some glitches that I did run into, but overall, if you want an old-school horror experience, Signalis is a very good game to try out, although I did hate that menu. It was not intuitive at all. But get past the flaws, and you'll find yourself enjoying this game. This next game is for all of you cozy gamers that are just sick and tired of all the violence and the gore that I've been showing in this video. Now, the Switch has tons of farming simulators, tons of life simulators. This one, I feel like flew really under the radar, and it's a pretty solid game. That's going to be Stranded Sails. At 20 hours to complete the game, this was perfect for those who love casual gaming and want to see the credits roll. It was a mix of exploration, farming, and some very light combat. In Stranded Sails, you crash your ship on an island and you have to find the crew, but you also have to survive and you have to solve the mystery of these islands that you're on. To survive, you're going to be able to grow many different crops by finding seeds throughout the island, and you'll need to water them to keep them growing. And once you grow the crops high enough or big enough, you can pick them and then you can make stews with it to power yourself up. Now, exploring is the key to progressing the story. There are various islands to explore, each with some secrets or objectives for you to do, and you can find other crewmates that have washed ashore or find valuable objects to help build shelters. And sometimes you might even run into a monkey who will have a valuable item that you need to have. Now, I did talk about a little bit of light combat. You will be fighting some ghost pirates, and they're not very scary and they're not very difficult to defeat, but I appreciate them being there. It's a light element of battling. It's not very challenging. It's just kind of move the joystick and swing the sword, but I appreciated having that in there to kind of mix things up. Stranded Sails, it looks fine, but it's not going to blow any players away. But this is a easier casual game. It's not a children's game, but it's a little bit close, maybe for just teens. If you want an easy, cozy game to take a break from all of that hardcore action you've been playing, try Stranded Sails. This next entry I actually didn't discover on the Nintendo Switch. I got it in a membership that I had with Xbox Gold. I played it there and I loved it. And then I had to get it physically into my Switch collection, and I replayed it again and it's just as good. That game is going to be Sine Mora. This is a very mature shoot 'em up with humanoid animals, but the storyline is very mature in this game, and they certainly talk like adults. Now, as a shoot 'em up, this is a unique one. Instead of health or one-hit kills, your ship will be judged on how much time is left. The mission will start with about 25 seconds on the clock, and it will tick down as you play. If it reaches 0, you die, but you can gain time by killing enemies. If you get hit, you'll be penalized and large segments of the time will be erased. I loved this. I thought it was brilliant, and it was a new way for me to experience a shoot 'em up. You'll be playing as different pilots throughout the game, and each one has its own sub-weapons that you can kind of unleash. Enemies are going to be dropping power-ups and upgrades for your main weapons, and you can get more time or points or fill up your power timer. Now, this is a short game, kind of like most shooters are, but it's actually somewhat long because I beat the game in just over an hour and a half, but you'll need to play through the game multiple times to get the alternative ending. And I did that. I really liked this game that much that I thought, yeah, I can play this over and over just to see how it ends. I think the best thing about this game, and this is a common theme in almost all of my selections, is the boss fights. They're all different, They were all super fun. There was this spider boss that was difficult to defeat, but once you take him down, his body kind of opens up and a bunch of other spiders come out. I just love those small details, and Sine Mora is full of them. I've already shown off a game that was exclusive physically to PAL regions. How about I show off a game that's exclusive physically in Japan? That is going to be Atomicrops. Now, to my knowledge, this never got an English release, but I did pick up the Japanese version, as I said. This is like a super strange mix of bullet hell shooters mixed with a farming simulator. You know, there are some easy games on this list, but this is one of the harder ones, and sometimes that's because the health in this game, or the health system, I didn't like it the best. It kind of sucked, but once you kind of get the hang of it, this can be a blast. Now, there's a lot to this game with the aforementioned bullet hell style battles, and there's also the farming of your land, but you can also get animals, and there's even romance options, so there is a ton to this game. But the bottom line is that you're going to need to kill mutant crops that have popped up because of a nuclear explosion not too far from you. It's important, though, not just to stay alive, but to stay productive on the farm because a local town is counting on you and the food to keep the population going. Now, there's some areas that you can unlock to find better crops and equipment, but this is no slow-paced game. So for those of you that are looking for a relaxing farming game, look elsewhere. You will be constantly attacked by mutant crops that are coming to destroy you or your farm. The combat, though, it was very zen for me because kind of once I got into the zone of weaving in and out of the bullets, it was fun. This is a very strange game, but it's one that I recommend that you guys should play. Now, I mentioned that the Nintendo Switch was just perfect for retro gaming, and a lot of the developers understood that assignment, that these games, they don't have to have 10 out of 10 graphics, they don't have to have top-of-the-line, newest age technology, they just have to be fun. And this game fully reflects what fun was in the 80s and 90s. That is going to be Demon Throttle. This was such an epic vibe from another era, from the CRT mode to the sound effects, the voiceovers, and the music. It is a 10 out of 10 for presentation, and the team nailed the execution of the idea that they were going for. It actually reminded me a ton of an NES game called King's Knight that was actually on my NES Hidden Gems video. Now, the levels are pretty short, but they're bursts of action, and at the end of these are going to be a boss fight that can be pretty challenging. During the levels, you're going to be picking up tons of power-ups, and I always did my best to pick up the speed and the tempo. That's what I found worked the best for me. The biggest thing, though, was trying not to stray too far from the path and go into the bonus dungeons. Those were super hard, and I never really figured out what they did for you. So just make it to the boss with full health or pretty close to full health, and you'll have a pretty good shot to at least learn the pattern of the boss, because this game is like a 20-minute game. It's not very long, but the levels are pretty short. I'd say they're like 2 to 3 minutes, and then you fight a boss. But again, this is all hard. It's a challenging game, so it can stretch out for a little bit. Something that I really liked were the controls. I thought they were pretty responsive and it flowed well. And one of the best things was the humor. This game is really funny with the writing and the characters. The final boss has a giant dick, and you need to shoot that dick to hurt him. But to do that, you have to get him to uncross his legs. It's just my perfect humor, and so I thought the humor was really well done. Overall, this is a love letter to the late 80s. This is a pretty cool hidden gem. So many games on this Switch Hidden Gems list has been retro themed, and this next entry, well, it's very retro themed. This is a throwback to 90s shooters. This game is just perfect for those that love Doom and Duke Nukem. That's gonna be Ion Fury. My last two choices have been pretty tough games, and this one is no different. Everything you loved about Duke Nukem and Doom with the super fast-paced action is in this game, and man is it hard. It's wild that you have the ability to save whenever you want, and I still struggle with this game, but that doesn't mean that I wasn't having fun with it. There are plenty of secrets to find within the levels, and all the humor from the 90s that we're not supposed to laugh at anymore is in this game. If you've been wanting a new retro Doom or a Duke Nukem type game, Ion Fury stars a badass female lead. She's got a lot of one-liners just like Duke had, and if you're worried about any frame rate issues on the Switch, I was very pleased to say that it was able to keep up with all of the action. And it was very rare that I noticed any performance issues, and honestly that's pretty impressive because there were times when I was battling 10 enemies at once while running around the level with bullets flying in every direction. It was all very fast, very fluid, and it looked good on the Switch. But I will give you a pretty big tip. Don't use the Switch in handheld mode. Put the Switch on a dock and use a Pro controller. Once I did that, I had such a better time with the controls of just having a controller in my hands, and it really helped my thumbs keep up with all the action. This is a dope game, and I love the old school action in it.
Sorry about the mess.
For my last entry on my Switch Hidden Gems video, I'm picking a horror title, but horror doesn't need to be super gory. It doesn't need to be super scary. You can play a game and still be spooked and chilled and get goosebumps. This next game did that for me, and that's gonna be Yomawari, The Long Night Collection. This was one of the bigger surprises for me over the past few years with how perfect the Switch is for this type of spooky or horror game. And yes, these are scary games, and yes, I said that with an S because this is a collection. There's two games here. In these games, you'll have a top-down view, and you'll be playing as a child who is searching around the area for something. But in this city, there are evil spirits that are wandering around, ready to pop up at any moment. It's done very well, and it definitely got my heart racing a few times. This isn't extreme horror, but it's really well done, and the scares are well paced and placed. I felt really helpless at times during my playthrough though, and that's kind of done on purpose because you can't fight back. You can run and you can hide, but I always felt like I was almost playing a horror stealth game. There isn't really a ton of plot in this game, so this is one really for your imagination. But the fact that I didn't know exactly what was going on or why I was on this journey really meant that the gameplay was the thing that was keeping me hooked. Now the horror did kind of feel like the Sixth Sense movie where you knew there were ghosts around you, and if you ran into one it would kind of scare you. But the ghosts in this game, they don't always feel evil. They're just kind of scary. That's how I felt avoiding them or whenever I saw one in Yomawari. It's a very unique, spooky game, and I hope you get to experience it. Think of it kind of like a PG-13 scary game. You'll see a lot of ghosts, but make sure you run away from them and make sure you hide. So those are my Switch Hidden Gems. Which of them have you just discovered, and which of them do you want to play now? Or which of them have you already played? Let me know in the comments below, and also let me know some Switch Hidden Gems of your own. I would love to expand my library and maybe pick them up. I feel like the Switch just has so many games that I could make 10 more videos and still have tons of hidden gems left to do. Now, I did make a Hidden Gems video on the Nintendo Wii not too long ago, so for all of you Nintendo gamers, you should check that out after this video. You know the drill. Thanks for watching, happy gaming, and make sure you play a video game today.